So where is this bright anomaly that was supposedly caused by the engine plume spreading out across the surface?
There is no plume, and there is absolutely no reason to believe there should be.
Huh?
There is no plume, and there is absolutely no reason to believe there should be.
There is no reason to believe that there was any engine plume? The plume that supposedly lowered the astronauts down to the surface? And just how do you propose that the craft landed on the moon without any rocket plume to gentle its fall? Hey, wait a minute. Didn't we establish earlier that the dark splotch seen in the Clementine photo corresponds exactly to the location of a bunch of impact craters that were already there before the Apollo 15 landing?
A few craters have it, most craters don't. It's probably from much more recent crater impacts.
This is extremely unlikely. Not only do meteoroid collisions leave craters, but also the initial impacts are visible from Earth. This is because the crash creates an enormous explosion bright enough to be seen through the simplest of ground-based telescopes. In the December 23, 2005 Science at NASA article, An Explosion on the Moon, we are told,
NASA scientists have observed an explosion on the moon. The blast, equal in energy to about 70 kilograms of TNT, occurred near the edge of Mare Imbrium, the Sea of Rains, on November 7, 2005, when a 12-centimeter-wide meteoroid slammed into the ground, traveling 27 kilometers per second. What a surprise, says Marshall Space Flight Center researcher Rob Suggs, who recorded the impact's flash. He and colleague Wes Swift were testing a new telescope and video camera they assembled to monitor the moon for meteor strikes. On their first night out, we caught one, says Suggs. The object that hit the moon was probably a Taurid, says Marshall Space Flight Center meteor expert Bill Cook. In other words, it was part of the same meteor shower that peppered Earth with fireballs in late October and early November 2005. The moon was peppered too, but unlike Earth, the moon has no atmosphere to intercept meteoroids and turn them into harmless streaks of light. On the moon, meteoroids hit the ground and explode. The flash we saw, says Suggs, was about as bright as a 7th magnitude star. That's 2.5 times dimmer than the faintest star a person can see with their unaided eye, but it was an easy catch for the group's 10-inch telescope. Cook estimates that the impact gouged a crater in the moon's surface about 3 meters wide and 0.4 meters deep. This isn't the first time meteoroids have been seen hitting the moon. During the Leonid meteor showers of 1999 and 2001, amateur and professional astronomers witnessed at least half a dozen flashes, ranging in brightness from 7th to 3rd magnitude. Many of the explosions were photographed simultaneously by widely separated observers.
And in their later June 13, 2006 article, A Meteoroid Hits the Moon,
there's a new crater on the moon. It's about 14 meters wide, 3 meters deep, and precisely 1 month, 11 days old. NASA astronomers watched it form. On May 2, 2006, a meteoroid hit the moon's sea of clouds with 17 billion joules of kinetic energy. That's about the same as 4 tons of TNT, says Bill Cook, the head of NASA's Meteoroid Environment Office in Huntsville, Alabama. The impact created a bright fireball which we video recorded using a 10-inch telescope.
The crater formed in 2005 was only 3 meters wide. The 2006 crater is 14 meters wide. And the explosions were noticed during their initial formations. The crater near the Apollo 15 landing site is 150 meters wide. If it were a recent impact crater, as Astrobrand suggested, the world's astronomers would definitely have noticed that explosion. And given its alleged proximity to the lunar module, there might have even been fear that the artifacts were destroyed in the explosion. Yet there were no such reports or sightings. When this was brought up to Astrobrand's attention, he claimed,
"When I say recent, this could mean anything within the last million years."
There is a pretty simple method that astronomers use to determine the age of craters.
A new crater looks something like this. This is Copernicus, and you can see that, first of all, that it has streaked all across the surface of the moon.
That's the debris, the impact.
That's the debris that's got spread all over the place. This one, too, is rather new, very new. And anytime you can see a crater with these streaks, that's new. Also, if you look here, you will not find any impact craters, or very, very, very few, inside of this new crater. So that tells us, it's young. If you look, for example, at this crater here, look at that. There are all kinds of craters inside of it and all around it and breaking up the rim. And so that would be much, much older. So this would be, 500 million, maybe even 1 billion years old. And this would be 3 or 4 billion years old.
So you can date the basin by counting the number of craters within the basin.
We can get a relative date. We can say this is younger than that.
Using this logic, let's have a look at the Apollo 15 site again. First of all, neither the photos taken by Lunar Orbiter or LRO show these streaks that are common to recent impact craters. And looking at the close-up LRO image, I've counted at least 20 smaller craters within the halo crater itself. Its neighbouring crater is also filled with many smaller craters. This means we know that, contrary to what Astrobrand claims, these are not recent impact craters.
Bottom line is that this dark smudge in this photograph could either be from the crater or from the LEM. Who cares? It doesn't have anything to do with other photographs, since this is the only one in ultraviolet light.
We already know that the smudge is from the crater. This contradicts the claim by propagandists who say it was caused by the descent engine. Whether it was taken in the UV or visible spectrum is irrelevant. All scientists seem to agree that the disturbance should be visible from space. Yet the only disturbance they've been able to find are these craters that long predate Apollo 15.
And this orbital photograph in visible light, which you've shown, doesn't show any dark or light smudge.
Astrobrand must be using pretty shit software, as no one can see anything in his resolution. But when one looks at the high-quality Lunar Orbiter photos, we find that there are a bunch of craters in the vicinity of the alleged halo. The brightness all comes down to the angle of sunlight and the camera position. Further, you can see something bright in this photo. Notice how the left edge of the crater is lit up. Most of the crater is in darkness, but the left side is indeed lit up. Clearly, the halo itself predates Apollo 15. And for further proof, here is another photo from the JAXA article. We'll discuss this photo in particular a little later on. The photo on the right was supposedly taken aboard the Apollo 15 command module after touchdown. It shows an alleged halo. If we zoom down and flip between this image and the Lunar Orbiter image, we find that the halo fills up the left portion of the crater. Oh sure, the halo is more pronounced in the Apollo 15 image, but so are the halos around all the other craters. The Sun appears to be filling up the craters less in the Lunar Orbiter photos, so again, it all comes down to different lighting conditions. Bottom line, this halo was definitely there before Apollo 15. And I really hope no propagandist tries hyping about the similarities between these photos. The fact that this one predates Apollo 15 should be all the indication one needs that the Lunar Orbiter photography provided the perfect reference material for building realistic moon sets.